Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. Once again, this is your Dharanz. In this video, we're going to look at how to implement Entity Framework Database First approach using .NET Core 6. I've already made a video how to develop Entity Framework Database First approach using .NET Framework, and I'm giving you a card in the top right corner. You can go ahead and check it out. Now let's see how we can do this. We shall start from the scratch. To use .NET Core 6, you have to install Visual Studio 2022. It supports .NET Core version 6. Now I can go to create new project. The new project has ASP.NET Core Web API. I'm using Web API project for this demo. Click Next, and we have to set up database first app, DB first app. Click Next. You don't have to do anything, just click create and make sure you are having a framework of 6.0. Now our project has been created successfully. If you see, there won't be any startup file because .NET Core has minimalized most of the cases, so we can know about it in a minute. First, I just want to go ahead and create one controller called test controller, MVC controller, and it has to be test controller. Our text controller has been added. Now you have to change the controller to controller base. The controller base provides many properties and methods that are useful for handling HTTP requests, and it supports services and web APIs as well. So when you go ahead, it's just a simple metadata. Now I have to set it as API controller since we are going to handle some HTTP requests in there, and I have to change the index to get employee list, and I'm return status code variant in HTTP status code. We should import the namespace as .NET, and that should be success. As of now, this is fine. This has to be, I'm just giving a data annotation. This has to be the HTTP GET method, and it has a route of API and employees. As of now, we are good. And in NuGet package managers, we are about to install some packages to run Entity Framework in Core App. So right click DB First App. If you see manage NuGet packages, in browse type entity. First you have to install Entity Framework Core. And SQL Server. And Entity Framework Core Tools. That's it. I can close the NuGet tab. Try rebuild, whether do we have any issues. No issues, rebuild has been succeeded. Next step, we have to create one folder called models. New folder called models. This is a folder where we're gonna implement a database context file from the entity framework. To do that, we have to open package manager console that you can get it from tools, NuGet package manager, and package manager console. Before that, in app settings.json, open it up. You have to implement a connection string to connect your SQL server for entity framework. And inside the connection strings, you can say default collection and the data source, initial catalog, and integrator security since I'm using a Windows application. In the package manager console, we're gonna use a scaffold db context command that actually acts like an entity framework wizard that we are using in .NET Framework. You can specify a connection string where you have to get the data from and which package that you are using, and you have to specify the folder name and the table name, and you can specify how your data context file to be named. So let's see how we can implement it. Scaffold db context, and you have to give your connection string as per app settings. You can change to dot, and you have to mention the SQL Server namespace that you can get it from the packages. You have to mention Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server. So let me go to properties, and I'm copying it names. You can mention it here, paste, and you have to mention output directory, which is models. Make sure your package manager console is set to default project to DB first app. It should be models, and you have to mention your table. In our case, our table is employee, and you have to mention your context file name. I'm just setting it as data context, maybe database context. That's it. Before that, before executing, I want to show how my data table looks like. As you can see, this is my data table, which is employee, and we have ID, username, password, age, email, just a generic columns to be tested. And I have selected a test database from my connection. I'm executing it. Cool. Make sure you are putting only single slash in the data source. When the package manager console has been executed, you could see in the models folder, two files has been created. One is database context file, which we have named. Another one is employee.cs, which is an entity framework application of data table. Now, that's it. We have done enough to approach entity framework. When you open database context, you should notice one potentially sensitive information warning. You can delete this, but when you execute an application, when you specify database context in the test controller, this database connection will be get executed. This inside an application, if you want to change something in the app settings.json, it won't be reflect. In order to do that, you have to go to program.cs. It's supposed to be startup.cs in the .NET Framework lower versions of 6. Under the add controllers, you have to mention builder.service.addScope. In the add scope, you have to mention your controller, which is test controller. The suggestions you can see that's a controller, and the same goes up here. Instead add scope, you have to mention add db context. You have to mention the db context name, database context, You see, I'm just selecting this, and you should specify option. In the option, that should be use SQL Server. The SQL Server comes from the namespace of Entity Framework Core. In the SQL Server, you have to specify the connection string from the app settings.json. To approach that, builder.configuration.get connection string. Inside that, you have to mention our default connection property. Once you done that, that's it. Let me go to the text controller. In the text controller, I'm just creating variable for the database context. Private read only database context. It should comes from the model db context, and under the constructor of the text controller, I'm going to mention as db context, and db context is equal to our db context from the parameter of the constructor. That's it. Now we can go ahead, check where employee list is equal to database context dot employee dot to list. Just give employee list to here. That's it. Let me build the application. The build is succeeded. When I run the application with the DB first app, it runs in the Swagger. Now I can open API employees, try it out, execute. It brought up the data from the SQL Server. We have 3 employee counts. Here 3 employee counts. It has succeeded. In this way, you can have all the correct functions by using Entity Framework, which is common for .NET Framework and the core as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like, please click the like button. If you have any questions, comment me below. Subscribe my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon to get my latest video updates. Thank you.